Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life in Space Days, an online event organized by the Polish Astrobiological Society. Our society is a nonprofit grassroots initiative created by Polish scientists passionate about studying life in space. Our mission is to connect people, strengthen our research community, and promote astrobiology worldwide by supporting scientific projects, organizing educational workshops, and hosting public events like this one. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce the first speaker of our 4-day event. Dr. Peggy Whitson is one of the most accomplished astronauts in history, a veteran of multiple space missions, and two-time commander of the International Space Station, including the mission with Polish astronaut Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski. She is also the vice president of a human spaceflight at Axiom Space. We're truly honored to have you here with us. Thank you for finding the time in your busy schedule to join this community of students, researchers, and space enthusiasts who are eager to hear your insights on science, exploration, and leadership in space. Thank you, and the floor is yours, Becky.
All right. Well, it's so exciting to be here to talk to a group of interesting scientists. I'm looking forward to hearing what questions you might have. I figure you'll probably be able to ask questions that I won't be able to answer, but I'll do my best. And I'm really looking forward to sharing with you some of our experiences from the Axiom 4, not only Axiom 4, but 1, 2, 3, and 4, the 4 missions that have been conducted on board the International Space Station as a part of Axiom Space. So it's been a real pleasure to be able to be a part of that. When I left NASA in 2018, I figured I was done flying in space. There would be no future opportunities. And it's so exciting for me to be a part of something that's changing so quickly that in just a few years, 5 years later, I was flying in space as part of commanding the Axiom 2 mission to the International Space Station. And since then have flown another time. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of the stories about going into space during these Axiom missions and sharing some of the science that we've done in recent years. So I think if we can bring up the slides. We know that already. Let's move on. Before we start on the Axiom, the private astronaut missions that I've flown on, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what Axiom Space does in general. We have 2 major areas. One is actually developing Axiom Station, and the other is Axiom Suits. So our folks are working diligently to get a space station built that will continue our presence in space. As you know, I'm sure, we just celebrated 25-year anniversary of the International Space Station, and we only expect it to last to 2030. So Axiom Space is hoping to be able to bridge that end of the life of the International Space Station and continue with Axiom Station. And the Axiom suits are the suits that will be used by the NASA astronauts when they land on the lunar surface on the Artemis 3 mission. So we're really excited to be a part of that part of the future of space, particularly the aspects of commercial space. But I want to talk to you more specifically today because you're scientists, and so I like geeks, and I want to share a little bit of this science about what we've done on orbit and just some of the excitement of what it's like to be part of a commercial space program. And these missions are called private astronaut missions. And these are the 4 missions, the crews that have flown on those 4 different missions. And as I mentioned, we accomplished 4 of these missions in 4 years at a time when I am, so proud to be a part of this because it happened so much sooner than I ever anticipated. So I'm going to talk in much more detail about each one of these missions as we go through. Axiom 1 launched in April in 2022. We had trained for that mission for a little over a year before that. These missions, unlike the International Space Station missions with the government astronauts that live up there, like I did before, on 6 to 8 month missions, these missions are short duration missions. And so for us, it's these serve as precursors for our mission operations, our training programs, and how we conduct these missions once we get to orbit and then after we return. And all this is really important for us as we are looking to build that Axiom station. We want to be able to hit the ground running as soon as Axiom station is up there and be prepared to have all the services and the cargo, all the necessary piece parts that it takes to fly a mission ready to go with Axiom station. And so the first mission was a great success. It actually had 3 private astronauts flying aboard a part of this mission, and we have a little preview of their crew.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Stop. Go Falcon. Go Dragon. Godspeed. Axiom 1.
Key mission objectives for AX1 have always been scientific research and outreach, performing meaningful science while still taking the time to communicate out the impact and application of that research.
This is really the opening of a new era, where it's not just government astronauts like it's been for the last 60 years.
When you start to dig into it, microgravity is a very unique environment to conduct research and experiments. Just the whole experience looking out of the cupola is
beautiful, amazing. emotional.
אנחנו עפים מעל כדור הארץ במהירות עצומה, וכל 45 דקות יש או זריחה או שקיעה, ורואים כדור מדהים.
It's been an amazing experience. This will be something that we can share with humanity.
After 17 total days in space, 15 of them aboard the ISS, we are in the final phase of a journey that has covered more than 240 orbits and 6.3 million miles.
There's our first view of Dragon Endeavour re-entering Earth's atmosphere with the Axiom 1 crew. We can confirm that the Dragon capsule has splashed down.
To the crew of AX1, well done.
As mentioned, research-focused mission. We also had a lot of STEAM outreach activities going on during the mission. Science, technology, engineering, art, and math that was going on during the mission. And the crew was incredibly successful. And the ground teams learned a lot about how to support and make a mission happen. We are lucky enough at Axiom to have former NASA people, but we also have other folks that are not with previous spaceflight experience. And so this was great learning ground for us for AX1. These are all the different companies and institutions that supported the Axiom 1 mission. You can see a lot of folks are involved. And that's actually one of the benefits of these commercial astronaut missions. We're not only involving the countries of the crews that are a part of the missions, but also all these different commercial organizations, institutions around the world. So it's a good way to open the door. Axiom 2 launched just over a year later. And ours, unlike the first Axiom 1 mission, we had 1 private astronaut and 2 government astronauts with us on board. And it was interesting because we also were flying the first Saudi woman in space. So it was exciting to be a part of that mission. We had a lot of scientific and
Dragon, copy. Go from us.
Today, we stand on the threshold of a remarkable journey, thanks to your unwavering spirit to explore beyond our home planet. And with that, let's get to work and build some history together.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. Lift off.
Together, we expand what is possible for Earth orbit at Astra and Godspeed AX2.
new crew on orbit. And I'm even more excited about welcoming 3 new astronauts.
I wish we had more words than just amazing, fantastic, awesome, all those things, because they fall short.
تم إجراء وإنجاز جميع التجارب العلمية والأبحاث المنوطة في هذه الرحلة بنجاح ولله الحمد. وإن شاء الله نسأل الله أن تعود علينا بالنفع في المستقبل.
On behalf of the Expedition 69 crew, it's been an honor to share the ISS with the Axiom 2 crew. We're going to miss them. We wish them Godspeed tomorrow. Thank you guys for a fun week.
Very coffee, and thank you for the hospitality.
AX2 back on.
Every story comes to an end, and this is only the beginning of a new era.
So AX2 had a lot of different outreach events, over 20 different events, and they had some extremely well-organized outreach to Saudi Arabia. Had on one event over 900 students participating. So it was very impactful, I think, for them during that mission. We obviously did different kinds of research on board AX2. Some actually I'm going to share a little bit later, because we ran some of these investigations over all 4 of the missions. But it was just really exciting to be a part of that. And here you can see Rayana in the liquid nitrogen freezer, we call it the Melfi, the -80 liquid nitrogen freezer. Some of the interesting research that we did on AX2 included some in-space manufacturing of DNA-inspired nanotherapeutics. These molecules can self-assemble, and they can potentially be used for drug delivery and treatments for osteoarthritis. You can see the comparison between microgravity and ground. And actually, 2 was so successful that they repeated the investigation during 2 different cargo Dragon phases of flight during the ISS crew, continued them, and they had great success on board with these nanoparticles. So we're looking forward for Axiom Station to go to the next step and be producing larger quantities of these nanomaterials. Another one that I personally was very interested in, I had done some stem cell research while I was a NASA astronaut, but here we were working with Cedars-Sinai looking at stem cells, and these are induced pluripotent stem cell lines, and then human induced pluripotent stem cell fibroblasts. And they were thawed on orbit, and they made these tight spheres and grown in this matrigel, and then they were transfected with DNA using commercially available materials. And that was actually the first time that had been done on orbit. And they, again, followed up with additional investigations from the ISS crews to continue this research. And we're very excited about that. And actually, we did, there was a publication from that. And one of the things about doing research in space is sometimes we have to develop special hardware and technology just to do the investigation, and that can be really challenging. In this case, we actually were using commercial off-the-shelf hardware like we use on the ground. And it was possible because the surface tension would hold the stem cells into the wells of the plate, and it worked out really well. And we were very pleased about being able to publish that research. Again, this is the list of all the different groups that we were working with during the AX2 mission. So AX3 launched a year later. Again, this is just amazing. Actually, it was a little less than a year. And to me, miraculous that we were able to pull off, these missions at this kind of a pace. 3 countries, it ended up being an all-European mission. We had Italy, Turkey, and Sweden, and then our commander, Michael Lopez Alegria, is also Spanish in addition to a U.S. citizen, so they made it an all-European mission. And again, they had connections with ESA, and a lot of the research done was, sponsored within the within that whole European industry. And we've got another little video.
For some reason, every time I think about the countdown, it starts at T-7 seconds. I don't know why. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, JK, everybody, this is a Spaceship Freedom. Here we are above the Earth. Amazing ride uphill. We're very proud to be representing Axiom and our nations here. I couldn't be happier to be here and prouder of my guys. It's just a great job all the way uphill.
On behalf of the Expedition 70 crew, I'd like to welcome Axiom 3 on board the International Space Station.
Welcome aboard Axiom 3 station. We are now resuming operational audio communications.
I am very proud of my AX3 crewmates who helped their agencies achieve all of their science objectives, technology demonstrations, as well as the outreach events.
So what I really hope this experience as a family will bring to them, it's the self-confidence that nothing is really impossible. I want to be an example, and I want to be part of those that make something impossible possible.
This is not a mission of a single individual. This is not magnifying a name. This is just the ignition moment. This is not the end. This is just the beginning.
So the AX3 crew was also very successful. Over 30 different scientific investigations were completed and lots of outreach, as was indicated. Again, here's all the different groups and agencies and universities that we worked with on the AX3 mission to complete that. And then AX4 launched just a few months ago in June of this year. We had 3 different governments who each had an astronaut in space, but more than 40 years ago. And so it was the first time those 3 countries had returned to space after a more than 40-year hiatus for each of them. And so it was very exciting to be there, and of course, the first time for them to be on the International Space Station. We have a short, just and of course, I'm biased. This is one a great mission. We had over 60 different investigations completed while we were up there, and we had countries from all over the world that we were representing with these research studies that we were doing on board. And one of the really important research aspects I wanted to talk about in particular was the cancer research we're doing on orbit. We started this on AX1 and continued it, stepping up what it was our objectives were and what we were getting out of that. We were working with the Sanford Stem Cell Institute, Dr. Kat Jamison and her team, and we were looking at cancer growth on orbit. And you might say, why would you go to orbit to look at cancer cell growth? And one of the interesting things we find is that cancer cells actually replicate even faster on orbit, which is great when you're trying to test drugs that will stop or kill the cancers. On Axiom 1, we tested a brand new drug that was experimental, rubexinib, and found such cool results that we repeated again on 2 and 3 and 4, and added in a new drug in addition on 4. But we're seeing some amazing effects of basically killing the cancer cells. The first drug that we tested initially on 1 and 2 went into human trials. It's now an FDA investigational new drug going into trials here on Earth, but in part was sped up. That process of becoming an investigational drug was sped up because of the research that we were doing in space. So we were looking at these different tumor organoids. Also, each mission, we stepped up what we were doing. The first ones were cell line derivatives. The second one was derived from primary tissues, tumor tissues from Earth. And then the third one, but they were still lines. And then on Axiom 4, we actually had patient-derived ovarian glioblastoma and AML tumor organoids, and we were able to test rubexinib against all of those. And glioblastomas are notoriously very hard cancers to kill, and the drug, we were very excited, worked extremely well even against those types of tumors. So really exciting research that we're doing with cancer research and testing drugs. I see this as being one of the futures for Axiom Station, testing for drug therapies like this. Another thing that I worked on while I was working on the ISS, we did a lot of studies looking at bone and the bone process, because in space, your bones demineralize way faster because you have no gravity. For instance, here on Earth, an osteopenic woman would lose potentially 1% of her bone mass in a year. And here in space, we could lose that as astronauts, young adults or younger adults, in that much bone mass in 1 month if we didn't do things to countermeasure that by extensive exercise, 2 hours of exercise a day. And that works, but we want to try and understand why that's happening and try and come up with methods and processes that will help us in the future. So some of the really interesting research we did on rodent studies was looking at the bone processes and looking at different drugs to improve healing and see if we, again, because in a very short period of time, you could test drugs very quickly and see a result on orbit. Again, we had over 60 research activities, 23 outreach events, and the guys that I worked with, one of which is known to you guys very well, Sławomir Uznansky-Wisniewski. He did an amazing job and did some investigations, a number of investigations from Polish scientists while he was on orbit. And Tibor, the same with Hungarian scientists, and Shubhanshu from India also was doing Indian research studies. So it was a really exciting mission with lots going on. We were very busy. And I think we probably have some time for some questions. And if you want to look up more about our research at axiomspace.com has a lot more information. And our website, our generic website, has more about the missions if you're interested.
Thank you very much, Peggy. That was very inspirational. It's great to see more and more biotechnology experiments in space. I was particularly inspired by the AX2 transfection in the orbit. It reminded me of an experiment designed by Ivan Paulo Lima at NASA Ames with the power cell, where we did bacterial transformation in microgravity. So more and more medical biotechnology research. And here comes my question: Is Axiom or any other company planning on building a dedicated online database of space biology data from experiments conducted specifically on the orbit?
I don't know of that. I think NASA has some level of database, but I don't know how much information is in there. But I know NASA is required for all NASA-funded research for that to be publicly available.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the Gene Lab by NASA, I know they're struggling right now with funding, so maybe someone stepping in would be a good substitute for that. And talking about like human experiments in space, you are kind of a subject being exposed to microgravity. Do you still feel any influence of the last experience of microgravity? What was it, about 5 months ago? But how you feel today?
No, I feel great. The shorter duration missions, my recovery has been much quicker. After I did 6 months, 9.5 months, and then the last 2 missions with Axiom were 10 days and 20 days long. So the shorter duration missions are easier, more quick to recover from. Some people get what they call space adaptation syndrome when they go uphill, and then others get sick when they come home. I'm a get sick when you come home kind of person, so it takes me a bit to readapt to the whole gravity thing.
It's good to know. I invite everyone listening to us live on YouTube to leave your questions in the chat. I will ask one more question, and then I hope we'll have enough of your questions to be pasted here. And so how concerned is Axiom about the biofouling of its newly built space station that you're building? Is there any antibacterial strategies that will be implemented that would be different from ISS, which we know is quite dirty at this point?
Yeah, it was actually interesting on the ISS about how that process occurs, and it definitely is something that you have to be concerned about. Axiom Station is also looking at that, looking at different types of materials to try and prevent that process from occurring. And they've done some testing here on the ground to ensure which materials are going to work the best for those types of surfaces to inhibit the growth.
I'm waiting for the question from the chat. And here we go. Once a nanomaterial is produced in microgravity, how do they conserve their qualities and characteristics on Earth?
Well, some of the data actually is collected on orbit, just the photography, the videography that we collect live on orbit. We obviously bring back some of the samples, but I don't know that it is entirely always retained, because we do go through some G-forces to get back to Earth, and so do the samples go through those same G-forces, up to around 4.5 or so times your normal gravity. So that's why they do the data collections on orbit as well as bringing the samples back.
Thank you so much for your answer. And based on your knowledge and experience, do you think humanity will be able to establish a base on the moon or Mars in this century? What are the biggest challenges in your opinion?
I think it's an exciting time to be involved in space. I know there are lots of studies going on about how to build structures using regoliths, so you minimize how much you would have to take with you to inhabit and build a base on the moon, lunar surface and Mars. I think using the moon as our test ground for trying out some of these things, whether they're expandable modules that you might put inside of a cave, or using regolith to actually make a new structure is going to be important. Obviously, I mentioned putting something in a cave and using regolith. That's because we want to have enough radiation protection to protect the crew. Here on Earth, even in the International Space Station, we are protected to some degree by the geomagnetosphere of our planet. So our radiation levels are much lower. The lunar and Martian surfaces are going to be exposed to much higher levels of radiation. So that's, I think, going to be something that we will have to plan around, all our logistics and how we're going to live with a base for extended periods is going to have some level of radiation protection.
Yes, and then another question that we got from the public is, considering your career as an astronaut so far, what are your next professional goals? Maybe a flight to the moon and the Artemis program? I actually wanted to ask the same.
Oh, well, I would love to be on an Artemis flight to the moon. I'm not sure that, that's a government funded program, so I'm probably going to have to stick with commercial at this point.
Hopefully there will be commercial flights to the moon as well.
Eventually, I know there will be.
This is good to know. Are collaborators within European countries only restricted to full-fledged members of ESA, or also countries with cooperation agreements?
So it's actually both. Commercial space has the luxury, the flexibility, the adaptability to take in anyone that can provide the resources to support a mission. And that's what Axiom, I think, excels at, is being able to take folks that don't have a lot of experience in spaceflight, or maybe necessarily the resources to make a mission, and we can help them assemble their mission and make them successful on orbit.
Thank you for your answer. And the next one is, what is the most challenging aspect, symptom of being in space for you each time you're there? Like, what is this thing that...
Yeah. with the fluid shift, everybody the first few days has a kind of a headache. You feel like you have a bad head cold. And a lot of people you will see that go into space will get actual puffy face. I have a very different face in space. It's much fuller, puffier. And some people lose that pretty quickly. Others, it stays with them. So I'm one of the folks that I kind of have a puffy face the whole time. It's not uncomfortable after a few days, but that initial fluid shift, it is uncomfortable. Your spine elongates, and so sometimes you have low back pain as your spine is elongating, and the little muscles around your vertebrae are getting stretched out as you get taller in space. So there's that to deal with, but that again only lasts for a couple of days. And for me, actually, the most irritating part is just coming home and readjusting to gravity. On the longer missions, where especially after the 9.5-month mission, I had a lot more trouble readapting back to space. And it was funny because the big muscles are strong because you're working out, 2 hours a day, an hour of resistive exercise and cardio, and another cardio exercise time frame. But even though your big muscles are strong, your coordination muscles have forgotten how to work because you haven't had to balance. You haven't had to use your core muscles that much. So you have to redevelop and reteach those muscles how to work. So that takes some time. We, after long duration missions, had 45 days of a rehab and reconditioning to get us back into shape for Earth.
So our bodies become a little bit lazy.
Yeah.
I was surprised that human physiology can even adapt, because I suppose there has to be a change in a strength, how your heart beats and everything, how to adjust to those shift of the fluids and how strong you have to pump.
So the fluid shift actually causes different hormones to be released to redistribute or get rid of the excess fluid in your body. And so after a long duration mission, you come home with 20% less blood volume, 15 to 20% less blood volume. And so there's a tendency for people to be orthostatically intolerant. In other words, they tend to faint a little bit easier because they aren't used to that lower blood volume in a 1G environment.
And it is an evolutionary coincidence. It might have happened and our bodies wouldn't be able to do that, and our species would never travel to space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know. And we have a question from Shamak. Do you get used to flying into space, or every flight is always as an exciting and as the first one?
They're all exciting. That's what I love about going to space. I always say I'm a little bit addicted to it because I'd go back in a heartbeat anytime. It's, there are things that you do in space that are become routine, but I always have felt like if you have the right attitude about being there, everything is in support of building a station or conducting research. And so I think that attitude and positivity makes being there, even for long durations of time, very exciting.
Wrapping up with the last, with some of the last questions, maybe one or two more. How would you compare the spacewalk to the overall spaceflight? Is that more intense?
People ask what's the best thing that you've done while you've been in space, and I would have to say doing a spacewalk is one of the coolest things. You're basically in a little spaceship built for one, out there doing this work. I like it because it is physically challenging. You're working against the pressure of the suit that is there to protect your body, so it requires physical strength. But it also, if you're the lead EV spacewalker, you also have to be planning ahead. You have to know when you're running behind the timeline, how you can work to get back in ahead of the timeline. Everything's always about getting all the science, the objectives done, whatever they are, whether it was assembly or construction or repair. So you're always, it's very intense. And I think because it is so intense, it is one of the most satisfying things that, it's quite an accomplishment.
In one of the lectures, I heard that the gloves can be uncomfortable and you're squeezing and holding for your life, and that can influence your nails. And there could be like even surgeries. And did you have a problem with that?
I didn't. I'm lucky. I have relatively hard nails, but it's not so much the pressure. Once you get used to being in space and you're out on the spacewalk, but you're using your hands for everything. It's not like you're walking. You're using your hands to move yourself everywhere. And so your hands and your forearms get fatigued just from working against that pressure of the suit. During the training, especially if you tend to sweat a lot, if your hands sweat a lot, then you might have more issues with the nails, and that can become more serious for some crew members than others. I just had to make sure my nails were cut completely off because they were so hard that I would have bruises on my nails from just the pressure that's put on them for all the tasks that you're doing.
This is something we don't think about every day.
Yeah.
And a question from Stepan: as a scientist on the International Space Station, which experiment did you find most interesting to work on, and what made it stand out for you?
Well, I shared with you the study on the cancer, which I'm very excited about. It was not as hands-on as some of the other experiments. I love the hands-on things that require a lot of crew interaction. The more of that it becomes more satisfying to me. So some of the ones I like the most, because I had done tissue culture as part of my graduate research. I was very interested in doing stem cell growth and being able to grow those cells for the first time in space, and as part of some NASA missions that I flew on. I was really excited by those investigations just because, but it was funny because I was, I had all this experience in tissue culture, sterile technique, and after 2 or 3 days, I pulled them out to feed the cells again. And one of the wells, it was a big 6-well thing, and one of them was cloudy. And I'm like, oh my God, it looks like I've contaminated it. And I was like, I'm like devastated because I'm like, I know how to do sterile technique. And then I pulled out the next set of plates, and another well looked to be contaminated. They said, no, it's the same cell type in each of those wells, and it's just growing so quickly that it looks contaminated, and it was just the cells were growing so fast. And
Wow.
so it was amazing. It was very exciting. I like to do the ones that require a lot of hands-on and some specialty.
And challenging, like sterile techniques in space. I can't imagine. You probably don't have a laminar flow hood there.
We have hoods. We have glove boxes.
In the glove box, of course, understandable. Yeah. There's not an open one.
Yeah, not an open one.
Even more complicated. We're going to finish with the last question. This is my question to you. You're probably aware of the overview effect, like psychological effect. Have you heard about it?
Yes.
Did you experience it?
So I actually like to call it this change in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, you're looking out at the Earth. You see this Earth and everybody except for maybe half a dozen guys with you on board the space station, as far as we know, lives on that planet. And you get this perspective of how important this planet is, and it's floating out here in space, and you're like, it's kind of like its own little spaceship. And so you get this effect of, hey, this is spaceship Earth, and this is important to us, and maybe we should all get along a little bit better because we're all part of the same spaceship crew, and we should live better together here on Earth. I get that perspective, that importance of where we live and who we are from that perspective. And then you look out at the stars, and you see thousands and thousands and thousands of stars, and you're just like overwhelmed by the number of stars. And then you realize we're just looking at the stars in our galaxy. There are billions and billions and billions of galaxies. So that sense of perspective that, here is something that's so very important to us, and it's not even a speck of sand in the vastness of the cosmos, that extensive change in your perspective, which is what I think some people call an overview effect, is what I call perspective that is, just exponential.
I very much like that comparison and change of the naming to just a shift in perspective. So it seems like for the world peace would be best to bring as many people as possible to experience that. But also we all as being probably big fans of Carl Sagan. I have the whole series here on a cassette of the Cosmos classical ones. He's been a big advocate of astrobiology. And what I learned in my career is that, and I want to encourage everyone to follow the steps of learning about astrobiology, because I think that gives you this shift in perspective as well, even without leaving Earth. So just learning about Earth's evolution, how planets change, how stars evolve, how we have came to be, and knowing the perspective of time maybe gives you a little bit of that, what Peggy Whitson experienced in space. Thank you so much for your time. It was fascinating. It was entertaining. And thank you so much. I hope we're going to see each other again in the future events, maybe in person as well. And I'd like to invite everyone else for our future talks in the next 4 days. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.